Hello, and welcome to the Smart Compliance Podcast, where we host live conversations with industry thought leaders. Today, our guest is Steve Gibson. Steve is president at Dealer Risk Services. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Kenzie. Thank you.
Fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you work with dealers.
Well, my background is quite a story. I am a third-generation insurance professional. My family came down to Florida at the turn of the century and started in the insurance industry. My father actually began the firm that I work for in 1968. So last February, we turned 50 years of age at our firm.
Wow.
I worked in the family business until 1994, at which time I joined Universal Underwriters to learn the garage business. Universal, which is now Zurich, became one of the leaders in providing dealers with coverage for their dealerships and their property and their inventory, etc. In 97, I moved back to Florida to work for a competitor. I worked for John Deere Insurance Company, which later was purchased by Century. And I worked with them until 2001, at which time I went back and reopened the family firm, and here we are today. So I have almost a decade working for two of the major providers and really close to 25 years of working in the dealer community.
Fantastic. I had no idea it ran so deep into your family.
It does. It does. And our firm
Very cool.
kind of specializes in providing coverage for the dealer community. And we do it really in three ways, Kenzie. We do it through education, through teaching dealers about the insurance marketplace and more so about what makes their premiums go up and down.
Mm-hmm.
We do it through risk management, so teaching them how to control their losses. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, we do it through product development. So when dealers have a particular need which might not be fulfilled by the insurance industry, then we help them create that or we help them find it.
Mm-hmm. Between the big plaintiffs' attorneys cases, the slip and falls, the collisions, cybersecurity, F&I claims, have you been able to quantify or do you have metrics around what that's actually costing dealers, either in terms of dollars or time, or what is that costing those dealer businesses?
Kenzie, that's a good question. And claims are like an iceberg. And if we think back about the great Titanic tragedy, the tip of the iceberg is what you see on the surface, but really the cost of the claim, like the damage done by an iceberg, is often underneath the surface. So when we have a third party that's injured or a worker that's injured, we always think about how much the case is going to settle for, or how much the medical is going to be for an injured worker, or perhaps even the loss of wage. Mm-hmm. But if you look deeper than that, and if you start thinking about the time that the rest of the team spends on the claim, whether it's just the rest of the workers standing around and watching this injured party as they're carted off by a first responder, or even the HR people that have to fill out all of the forms, or perhaps the management team that has to go and sit in a mediation or a deposition, all of this is loss of productivity. And so all of it is, lost revenues back to the dealer, in addition to, of course, deductibles. I mean, mm-hmm. If a dealer has a $5,000 bodily injury deductible, then each and every claim he's on the first $5,000, plus those hidden expenses that you never see.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
In addition to that, oftentimes we see claims that just simply are not covered. I mean, the dealer community is not adequately covered at this time. But you're exactly right. I mean, I think that that you need to take the money that is saved and allocate it over to other areas that can make the dealership better protected in the event that something unfortunate happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense. And it's money that's already attributed somewhere. Like, you don't have to pay any more than what you're paying. It's already there. It's already working for you. Just work it smarter.
Right. What we talk about and what we try to teach dealers, Kenzie, is that the difference between a $5,000 deductible and a $25,000 deductible is $20,000. So if you have a loss and you've moved from 5 to 25, yes, it's going to cost you an additional 20. If you have several of those in a year, it may change your lifestyle a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If a jury comes in and gives an award for $30 million and you only have a $10 million umbrella, you're $20 million short. That's going to change your life altogether, and it may indeed change the name on the sign of the dealership.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want to guard against. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, but it only has to happen once.
Yep, totally makes sense. Man, that's a lot of money, but those verdicts absolutely do come down in those bigger figures. Let's talk a little bit about verdicts and damages. Have there been claims that you've seen come through that have been denied for one reason or another, and they possibly could have been avoided?
Well, we're always concerned about punitive damages, and I know that we talked about that earlier. Punitive damages are not insurable in every state by law. So there are certain states that do not allow punitive damages to be insurable. Florida happens to be one of them. Punitive damages are awards that are given by juries because they feel that the management practice is so lax and so permissive that the behavior is prone to happen again and again and again. And the only way that they can get the attention of the defendant is to punish them economically.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we think is important is that the defense attorney is able to show the jury that this error in the way of a rogue employee was just simply that, and that it is not something that is commonplace at the dealership, that this was indeed something that was just out of the ordinary, and that all of the policies and procedures and everything that goes on in the dealer's workplace each and every day is very strict and regimented.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you do that by documenting things, and I think you do that by talking about and preparing for that day in court long before it happens.
Right.
So you have to have policies and procedures in place.
Mm-hmm. So if you're going to use the increasing deductibles to lower your premiums, some of that capital that you free up, you can buy additional policies to provide the dealership with greater coverage. You can buy kind of an employee engagement platform that addresses those points that you talked about earlier: education, teaching about insurance, risk loss control. Kind of all of those things can be factors in how we show a good faith effort to show that the business is committed to doing things the right way.
It's all about awareness. It's all about awareness by the dealership team. I mean, from the porters all the way to the general manager. It's all about awareness of, the cost of controlling claims. And it's about setting standards for dealer operating procedures, for hiring and firing, for what's permissible in the workplace, what is not permissible in the workplace, what you can say to customers, what you can say to each other, how diligent you need to be in checking your work if you're a technician, and otherwise. One of the main things that we see in the dealership arena, and this is difficult, Kenzie, is walking the walk.
Mm-hmm.
And not just talking the talk. And that really becomes kind of touchy sometimes, because if you have an employee that is not following dealership protocols, be they moral or be they ethical or whatever, and you don't take, as the dealer, you don't take the proper steps of counseling, reprimanding, and potentially dismissing that employee, regardless of how good a producer he may be, then you set a terrible precedent. You not only set a bad precedent with the balance of the employees, but you sure as heck set a bad precedent if and when you ever get to a courtroom.
Mm-hmm. Because
there we get back to what I mentioned previously. This is common practice in the dealership. They don't reprimand anybody. They don't fire anybody. They just let this behavior continue. And the only way we can get their attention is to punish them financially. I mean, you never want that to happen.
Right. Punitive damages are never a good idea. Is that something you can help your prospects and clients with, Steve? Is counsel them on the areas that they should protect most?
Well, this is the very first thing that we do, Kenzie. Whenever we start talking to anyone, the first thing that we ask them for is a 5-year or even a 7-year historical loss run. Because if we look at that, then we can give them a pretty good idea of what's going to happen at their dealership. As well as one thing that I have found that really is it startled me the first time that I did it and I understood what was happening. If you walk through a dealership, and I'm sure you've done this before yourself, if you walk through a dealership and you look at people's faces, you can get a pretty good idea of what kind of dealership it is. And you can relate that to safety. If people are happy, if they feel secure, if they're enjoying their work, if they have a good work environment, if they feel safe.
So you arrive to the dealership at 8 a.m. to prepare for your day, and you get a customer right away that wants to go on a test drive. You get a copy of his driver's license, leave a copy with your manager, and load the information in your computer, grab the keys to do your test drive. Yeah, you're off. Suddenly, the person doesn't really want a test drive. He wants to steal the car and take you along for the ride. Do you know that not one dealership has anything in place? Nothing for your safety? Most of the time, hours have passed before you're missed? This is actually possible because there are no real-time security measures available. It can be considered negligence to run your car dealership business this way without having safety measures in place. Now we do. Salesperson alert fob everyone. Safe provides the only immediate real-time security for your Salesforce and your inventory, and it's a very good benefit for any automotive dealership owners. Our Safe security device gives you, the owner or manager, a safety program procedure in place for your company and will make your Salesforce feel more secure when leaving the dealership with a stranger and help them to feel safe, and also help to recover any stolen vehicle with less stress of not knowing. How does it work? Whenever your Salesforce are clocked in for work, they are required to have their safe on their person at all times. We have every safe with a neo-fence of 5 miles around your location and a speed neo-fence not to exceed 75 miles an hour. In a situation of theft or robbery, and your car is about to be snatched, the safe will trigger automatically in real time, sends a text alert, an email to every manager, and every manager computer will be alerted with that individual's profile on your desktop and your mobile app. In the event your sales staff are within the geofence and are in trouble, they can manually press our safe button. And with the push of a button, you are tracking that person in real time from your desktop or mobile app. You notify the police that your salesperson has been abducted, and you have them on your GPS platform that you are watching right now. You are the eyes for the police, so you can help guide them to the location of your salesperson. The policeman will chase after the car immediately to get your salesperson to a safe place and recover the vehicle. Isn't that awesome? So, is your Salesforce safe? If not, what are you waiting for?
In many different ways, then they're going to be more productive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the more productive and the more focused they are on their job, the less distracted, the fewer claims they're going to have. I think that's just a fact. It's a psychological fact, but you can look at people's faces and kind of get a good flavor for what the work environment is like.
Wow, that's a really interesting barometer. I know that we talk about employee engagement a lot and employee retention, and kind of the overall morale of the culture of the company plays a big part in that. But it's interesting to see kind of that same assessment under the lens of insurance, something that's a little bit more scientific in the actuarial tables that, calculates all the finances that go into it. I think it's cool that same metric can tell you a lot about the business, not just how the employees are doing.
I think that there's a danger in the status quo and just leaving things the way they are because they're not broken. I think we need to continue to evolve. and we need to continue to make sure that we're up to date with everything.
Yeah, that's fantastic insight, Steve. I think that's a really great perspective to take, and for our listeners to take and move forward. Steve Gibson, President at Dealer Risk Services. Thank you so much for your time today, Steve.
Thank you, Kinsey.